everyone. I hope that you guys are doing well today. I have sweet little Winona here, and she is just in this little baby nest that I made for her. I think it looks super duper cute, and it's a little bit long just so that she can grow into it. No, just kidding. But I do like having different sized reborns, and so this little baby nest is made to fit up to like a 6-month size baby. And so if I get any bigger dolls, then that would be great for them as well. But anyway, that's not the subject for today. So what I wanted to talk about today is increasing your sensory experience with your dolls. And before we kind of talk about that and dive into the topic, I just want to show you guys what I'm going to be changing her into today. So I have this sweet little Kate Quinn onesie. It's kind of like a red wine color, a little bit, maybe kind of darker. And these little polka dot pants that used to be my little sister's when she was a tiny baby. And then I really wanted to do a fun hat. I was thinking either this gray one with the ears or maybe the panda one. That one looks kind of wild. I'm not really sure. And then if all else fails, I have the white hat, which will definitely go with just about anything. So now we'll dive on in. I think that, when I talk about sensory experiences, like a lot of people think of, like a little kid running through and playing with shaving cream and things like that. But, sensory experiences are actually very important. It's kind of just how you sort of perceive the things that you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. So it's all those 5 senses kind of going together. And I think it's a really interesting subject because everyone obviously experiences different sensations differently. Some people absolutely love the color blue, some people hate it, some people really enjoy the sound of country music, some people really like punk rock, so there's just so many different things that you can experience in this world, and I think that art is one of my favorite. And so, now art doesn't always just mean, a painting on the wall. Now they have like mirrors that you can walk through, and it has different sounds, and they can do different colors. Or, there's art that you can touch. It has different feeling, or maybe you can't actually touch it, but it's made out of different fabrics and different textiles, and so you can imagine that it would feel differently. And I think that is just so cool. I've always really liked mixed media art, and I've always liked interactive art. And so I think, on my journey of Reborn collecting, it's always been kind of important for me to really enhance my sensory experience with the dolls. And I've found a couple unique ways to do it. I have my own little list, but I would definitely love some suggestions to add to this list. So as I talked about earlier, the 5 senses are seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. If you are hearing your reborn, that's probably not a good thing. The reason why we have reborns is so that we don't have to hear small newborns crying in the middle of the night. However, there are options if you do want that. I know a lot of people in their videos like to add the sound of the baby crying, or add like the sound of them like sucking on the bottle, or things like that, and that's kind of fun. But just like, when I'm spending time with my reborns, generally there isn't a whole lot of sounds going on, and I kind of would prefer it that way. So we're not really going to talk too much about that. And then if you're tasting your reborns, that's a little creepy. Probably shouldn't be doing that. So we're not going to talk about that one either. So the first one that we're going to discuss is seeing, and that is obviously the biggest thing in this hobby. I think that it's very amazing how much detail you can see that an artist will put into each individual doll, every single little painted hair, every little milk bump. So I feel like seeing is kind of already a big part, but there are certainly ways that you can enhance it, right? So I think one of the biggest things is seeing your reborn in different lightings. So if you've never taken your reborn outside into natural sunlight, definitely do that. You get to see way more of their details. And it's kind of interesting to see them like in different lightings, even in your house, because my dolls look completely different in my bedroom when, compared to my bathroom, just because there's different lighting and they're painted different colors. So the light kind of bounces back a little bit differently. So I think just kind of carrying your doll around, exploring them in different lightings is a really fun way to enhance that experience. Also, I really like posing my dolls. I never leave my dolls just like willy-nilly kind of like spread out around, because then I'm not really going to feel engaged to spend time with them. I feel like when they look really cute and curled up and, very sweet, well posed, then it makes me more excited to engage with them. And so I know a lot of people would prefer to keep their reborns under blankets and wrapped up and tucked away until they want to use them. I'm not that type of collector. I definitely never have been. I want to enjoy my reborns as much as humanly possible, and so they are right in my room where I can see them, and that is certainly the way that I would prefer it. I know a lot of people also have their dolls like hanging out in their living rooms or things like that, so just keeping them posed. I'll kind of do a whole video about posing specifically, because I started to think about all the points that I kind of like to do when I'm posing my dolls, and then I was like, this is going to take way too long, so I'll just make a separate video on that. But yet again, everyone kind of has their own preferences when it comes to posing their dolls too, so I feel like that is another thing that you can kind of play with, which is fun. And another thing that you can do is if your reborn has hair, making sure it's nice and styled and it looks realistic. I mean, of course, when they have painted hair, I think, in my personal opinion, I love painted hair because you don't really ever have to worry about brushing it or it falling out or anything. However, I think it does take away from the sensory experience because you don't really get to style it and you don't really get to see those flyaways and you don't get to touch their hair when you're holding them. So if you're looking for an increased sensory experience, I would recommend getting rooted hair for sure. Also putting them in clothing that is whether appropriate or just fun or cute. I think that can kind of enhance the seeing experience, is when you see your doll in something really adorable, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to hold them. And so I think that is obviously fun. I'm not sure if I like this panda hat. Speaking of clothing, that might be a no for me. So the next thing that we're going to get into is touch, which I kind of already talked about with the rooted hair a little bit. Rooted hair has always been my favorite for that reason, is I just love how it feels and how it looks most of the time. I don't know how I feel about this either. I know this hat is like built a little wonky, so maybe that's just it. Actually, never mind. That's pretty darn cute. What do you guys think? I'll try the white hat too just to make sure, but I think that's going to be a winner. The other thing that I think is very important when you're kind of experiencing touch with your reborn is having fabrics that are very soft and cozy. If it's not something that I would want on my body, then I don't really buy it for my reborns, even though they can't feel it. When I'm holding them, I can feel it, and so I don't really want anything like scratchy or pokey or not very soft. And one of the ways that I kind of get around that a little bit is I get a lot of used reborn clothing or used baby clothing, either from Once Upon a Child or other consignment shops. And that clothes has already been washed and worn a couple times, so the fabric just feels more soft, and I really like that. I know a lot of people would prefer new, but I actually kind of prefer used. I'm not even gonna lie. Some of my favorite pieces of clothing that I've liked, kind of like texture-wise, are really old raggedy pieces of clothing. So That's kind of a weird tip, but I think that it actually does work out pretty well. Also, you know, having blankets that you really like to touch too, and even warming them up in your dryer, I think is a really great idea, because then you kind of get that warm feeling as you're holding your Reborn, and that is awesome. I love that. I love warm blankets. And if your Reborn is cold, they're not really going to feel very realistic, and so you don't really get that experience as much. But if they're warm and the blanket's warm, and I think it makes it a little bit more fun. So that's definitely a good idea if you have the time during the day. I also am very picky about weighting. If the doll is not weighted correctly, it does not feel as realistic for me, and it really does take away from my sensory experience. And it's taken me a lot of dolls to really figure out what I like when it comes to weighting and what I dislike. And I am definitely the kind of collector that likes my dolls pretty heavy. And so I reweighted Winona to be about 6 pounds, and then I weighted Bowie to be about 6.5 pounds. So they're both pretty good sized newborns, I would say. I think this one's my favorite hat just because I like the ears. But like I said, this one ear, like, I need to fix this hat because it's kind of wonky. I hope that you could still see her okay. Looks like you can, so that's good. But yeah, so that's kind of something fun to do. Also, you know, if you like to give your dolls bottles, even if you don't use like real formula, sometimes it's kind of fun to take a bucket of hot water and warm up your fabric softener that way, so then you kind of get that warm touch while you're feeding them. And then smell, I do have a couple. So one of them is obviously washing your doll's clothes. Before I put anything on my dolls, I always wash them with my fabric softener that I really like to make them more soft and to make them smell good, because I feel like I am kind of a germaphobe for one, so just putting on clothes that you bought from like the department store, I think weirds me out, because, you know, I work at a mall and people will try on clothes, even on their babies, and they will accidentally throw them on the floor where it's all dirty and a bunch of people have walked, and people will sneeze on them and cough on them, and so especially now, I wash all of my clothes, especially if they are from a consignment shop, then they definitely need to be washed, in my opinion. But, you know, it's kind of nice to have clothes that smell like home too, so I like that as well. And another thing that I do is, you guys saw in probably previous videos, I do use the Wonder Wafers. You can buy these either from Bountiful Baby or McPherson's, pretty much any Reborn supply store, and they're just this little wafer that smells like baby powder, and I put them in the diaper. Or another option, if you don't want to do that, because I think they're like 50 cents per wafer, so it can get a little bit expensive after a while, is you can use Johnson's Baby Cologne. And what you can do is just put, let's see if you guys can see my hand. You can, okay, good. Put like the tiniest little amount on your fingertips and then rub it, and then just pat your doll's clothes. Do not pat their limbs or anything like that, because I think this is oil-based and you probably don't want that on your doll. I'll have to double check. It probably is. I'll put it in the comments below, but it is really a great smell. And it lasts for a couple days too. The Wonder Wafers last way longer. They last probably 3 or 4 months, I would say, before they start wearing down, maybe even a little bit longer. So this would have to be applied more often. But if you don't, if smells kind of give you a headache, then you probably want something a little bit more light and not as irritating. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Little Miss Winona is looking so sweet. Here's her little face. And if you guys have any more suggestions, I'd love to hear. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Also, side note, but I totally just realized that me and Winona are twinning.